there, Danavan Hylton. Wish you a great day, of course. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Today's song on Hamilton is My Shot. And at all times, we want to keep in mind, what intelligence can I take from this? If you're going through life and you are not looking at deeper messages, looking for deeper meaning, then you're missing key assets that can bring value to yourself and to others in a number of different ways for more than one reason. So in this simple song, we're going to see what intelligence, I'm going to challenge you guys to look this word up and to put this word into your heart. What intelligence can I take from this? My shot. Let's do it.
I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. Yo, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. I'm gonna get a scholarship to King's College. I probably shouldn't brag, but I got amazed and astonished. The problem is a lot of brains, but no polish. I gotta hide just to be heard with every word. I drop knowledge. I'm a diamond in the rough, a shining piece of coal, trying to reach my goal. My power of speech, unimpeachable. Only 19, but my mind is older. These New York City streets get colder. I shoulder every burden, every disadvantage. I've learned to manage. I don't have a gun to brandish. I walk these streets famished. The plan is to fan this spark into a flame. But damn, it's getting dark, so let me spell out the name. I am the A-I-E-X-A-N-D-E-R. We are meant to be a colony that runs independently. And while Britain keeps shitting on us endlessly, essentially, they tax us relentlessly. Then King George turns around, runs a spending spree. He ain't never gonna set his descendants free. So there will be a revolution in this century. Enter me.
He says in parentheses.
Don't be shocked when your history book mentions me. I will lay down my life if it sets us free. Eventually, you'll see my ascendancy. And I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. And yeah, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. And yeah, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. It's time to take a shot.
I dream of life without a monarchy. The unrest in France will lead to anarchy. Anarchy. How you say? I use anarchy. When I fight, I make the other side panicky with my shot.
Yo, I'm a tailor's apprentice, and I got y'all knuckleheads and local parentis. I join a rebellion, cause I know it's my chance to socially advance. Instead of sewing some pants, so don't take shit.
And but we'll never be truly free until those in bondage have the same rights as you and me. You and I do or die. Wait till I sally in on a stallion with the first black battalion. Never another shot.
Geniuses, lower your voices. You keep out of trouble and you double your choices. I'm with you, but the situation is fraught. You got to be carefully taught. If you talk, you're gonna get shot.
Bird, check what we got. Mr. Lafayette, hard rock like Lancelot. I think your pants look hot. Lawrence, I like you a lot. That's how you plot. Blacker than the kettle calling the pot. What are the odds that God will put us all in one spot? But it's why conventional wisdom, like it or not. A bunch of revolutionary manumission abolitionists. Give me a position, show me where the ammunition is. Oh, am I talking too loud? Sometimes I get overexcited, shoot off at the mouth. I never had a group of friends before. I promise that I'll make y'all proud.
Let's get this guy in front of a crowd.
I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. Hey, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. Hey, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. Everybody sing, whoa, 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 hey, whoa, whoa, whoa.
See, let him hear you. Let's go.
I
said shout it to the top. Sit to the top. Now, come on. Let's go.
Rise up when you're living on your knees. You rise up. Tell your brother that he's gotta rise up. Tell your sister that she's gotta rise up.
When are these colonies gonna rise up? 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 Rise up! I imagine that so much it feels more like a memory. When's it gonna get me? In my sleep, 7 feet ahead of me. If I see it coming, do I run or do I let it be? Is it like a beat without a melody? See, I never thought I'd live past 20. Where I come from, some get half as many. Ask anybody why we living fast and we laugh. Reach for a flash, we have to make this moment last. That's plenty, scratch that. This is not a moment, it's the movement. We're all the hungriest brothers with something to prove. When foes oppose us, we take an honest stand. We roll like Moses, claiming our promised land. And if we win our independence, that a guarantee of freedom for our descendants. Or will the blood we shed begin an endless cycle of vengeance and death with no defendants? I know the action in the street is exciting, but Jesus, between all the bleeding and fighting, I've been reading and writing. We need to handle our financial situation. Are we a nation of states? What's the state of our nation? Our past patiently waiting and passionately smashing every expectation, every action's an act of creation. I'm laughing in the face of casualties of sorrow. For the first time I'm thinking past tomorrow. And I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. Hey, yo, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry. I'm not throwing away my shot. We gonna rise, so ain't time to take a shot. We gonna rise, so ain't time to take a shot. We gonna rise up, rise up. It's time to take a shot. Rise up, rise up. It's time to take a shot. Rise up. It's time to take a shot. Rise up. Take a shot, shot, shot. Hey, yo, it's time to take a shot. Time to take a shot. And I am not throwing away my shot.
There it is. And I want to shout out Hamilton. It's a great Broadway play that one should check out. I found out about it by watching it on Disney Plus. But from my understanding, it is it's the highest or most awarded Broadway play in history. Sold out every time, waiting list. And excuse me, y'all. That's for another video. And so I found out about the play simply because I was on a civics talk show, and I had a conversation after the show about some feedback, and they said, well, and I was talking about partisanship, non-partisanship, and I said that George Washington didn't believe in partisanship. He didn't believe in political parties. He felt like there were division between the domestic citizens there, and it was indirectly infiltration from other countries into what was going on into said country. So they said, well, and I said, so the two people that actually started parties, it was the Democratic Republicans as well as the Federalists. One was started by Thomas Jefferson. I believe the second individual was started by Alexander Hamilton and others. But Alexander Hamilton, I couldn't get the name out, but I knew who it was, and it was like, Alexander Hamilton. I was like, yeah, how'd you know? They said, have you seen this play? I said, no. And so I checked out the play, and I do appreciate the fact that the play caught my attention as far as the modern message, the music. It was my first time really listening to music that had a meaning, if you will. I say that humbly. But it's just a good message that had a lot of passion into it. So shout out to Alexander, check it out. We'll put a link on there. Let's get into it. So what messages did we get out of that song? Now again, we're going to give you this. If you don't know Alexander Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton basically ends up becoming the Secretary of Treasury for George Washington, President George Washington, which is supposedly the first cabinet or administration for the United States of America. So Alexander, but he before he became the Secretary of Treasury, he actually was an immigrant, if you will, from Scotland. And he came from Scotland because at 14, he basically was living on his own. His dad had left him at birth or before. His mom, they considered, was a whore, and she passed away as he was growing up. He moved in with his cousin who committed suicide, so now he's considered a bastard, in those times, orphan. And so, but he was very bright. At 14, he basically gets a job with a dock port freight shipping company, and by, I think it was like a couple years or whatever, about 14 or 16, he was basically one of the head managers for that freight company, moving millions of dollars worth of goods each day, and that's what really introduced him to international trade. Hurricane or the storm comes in Scotland and tears the port up in the town. Everything's ruined, but the people of the town put some money together for this gentleman to go to New York and go to school and get a career going because he was so bright. So when he comes to New York, this is around the time of the American Revolution, where Britain is getting into it with the American colonies. And at this time, we're going to Hamilton. Hamilton is basically, story is shared in the Broadway play from there. That's just the starting point. So when we go to this information, I just want to give you a synopsis, if you will, of what this gentleman is going through. Now, do your research. Don't take the play and go with it. Do your own research. I've watched plenty of other documentaries. I'm doing research on the situations as to really understand the play and feel it more than just watching it from face value. So really do your research in all things. More importantly, what intelligence can I take from this? So one of the first things I saw on that resonated with me in the song is, I'm not throwing away my shot. Again, what intelligence can I or you as an individual, not what we need to do or what they should do. I have to focus on me. You have to focus on you. If we're following those principles, indirectly we're going to focus on each other because we're both walking to the highest standards, so therefore things should run smooth. This is theoretical. But what intelligence can I take from this? I'm not throwing away my shot. Are you throwing away your shot? Do you even know that you have a shot? Do you even care that you have a shot? You do have a shot. Do not throw it away for more than one reason. We'll get into that conversation another time. Now keep in mind, this gentleman says in the song, I'm not throwing away my shot. I have a lot of brains and no polish. I remember someone once told me, well, when I got started into hustling into my corporate profession or my career, I was 19 years old, and I was an admissions representative at a college that I happened to get on, and the director, who was a seasoned veteran, said, Donovan, you're young and full of piss. And I didn't get what he meant, but at the same time, I kind of did, because I was very development-minded, very initiative, if you will, and I was ready to go. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that you have to go through and know and pull back on. And I didn't know that based upon my inexperience of simply just not being in the game long enough. And so when he said I was young and full of piss, he says, I like your energy, I like where you're going, but you got to be able to master and hone and use it when you need to. So he openly stated that, Alexander openly said, I have a lot of brains, but no polish, which means I have a lot of information, but I don't know how to properly process and put to deliver the right output. He says he's a diamond in the rough. He is aware that he's coming from a rough situation. He is aware that his back's against the wall, but he sees value in himself. Maybe because somebody told him, or maybe because he saw it himself. Apparently, based upon his actions, this whole community paid for him to get a boat ticket to come to America, get him to school, and get him kind of set up. You know, so I would almost say that he still would have ties to Scotland as he built his career in America, first of all. Second of all, he said he was 19 years old when he hit the New York streets. Now, back in those days, modern time in America, we're very fortunate. We have a lot of laws and codes that can help justify any type of altercation that comes to us. But back in those days, it was more of a, not Wild West, but it was the Wild East. One of my favorite movies is Gangs of New York and The 5 Points, and back with Tammany and those type of situations, he was elected official. Those were kind of, it was less law enforcement, you know, so you had to pretty much stand on your own too, in so many words. So 19, immigrant coming into New York. I remember when in Gangs of New York, when the people came off the boat, the so-called New Americans came off the boat, Tammany and the elected officials were there giving them a piece of bread, a blanket, and a palm card that said vote for Tammany. Because technically now, when they came off the boat, they're an American citizen, and those votes counted to keep those elected officials in office. So, you know, back in that environment, basically, he's 19 coming off the boat. They see him valuable as a citizen because they can get their vote. But other than that, he has to survive in the streets of New York as a new American. So keep in mind, the independent colonies. At this time, we're talking about the American Revolution, there were colonies. It's not obviously the states that we see today. There were colonies, and there was conflict and challenges with Britain. And I believe it boils down to money. It was the taxes were too high. Or maybe they were tired of paying taxes. I'm going to do my research into these things. Because you're going to find that a lot of times that history repeats itself. And a lot of changes that happen in social, economic, geographical locations, 9.8 times out of 10 have something to do with money. No matter how you look at it, no matter what social situation is going on, it always boils down to money. Not always. Most of the time boils down to money. Because money is the lifeblood to our way of life in a way that is not, that it gives us a chance to live longer, travel, and experience more things compared to the farming situation where you're self-sufficient, you're farming, you're growing everything, you're producing, manufacturing everything yourself. it takes a lot of time compared to living in an environment where you have process, production, manufacturing. You can get here, go there, you know. So money always boils down to it. So this money led to a revolution. Now, Alexander said he's okay and may have the will to be mentioned in the history books. To be mentioned in the history books, you got to be doing something, both perceived either positive or negative, that's strong enough to be used as a story for any way in the future. And he basically was willing to, in his statements, was willing to lay his life down to get his message out for who he was, because Alexander knew that sometimes being able to walk away from something that you love is more powerful and more meaningful than to and then to continue to endure the situation. So he was ready to walk away from Earth. He was ready to walk away from what he knows, which is life and awareness, for a message that would have made him become known in the history books. And he said, I'm young, I'm scrappy, and I'm hungry. Maybe he didn't throw away his shot because he was scrappy. No. Maybe he didn't throw away his shot because he was hungry. When you're not hungry, you may become complacent. You may become stagnant. Nothing wrong with that. But when you're hungry, for whatever reason, your will is going to intentionally or unintentionally push you to make moves, because there's two things in biology that you have to have. So, in biology, survival and reproduction. Survival has to do with food, has to do with eating. And that's why in some slang cultures you say, well, I'm eating, or you gotta eat, because that's the law of nature. So because he's hungry, he has no choice but to be scrappy. And traditionally when you're young, you have a lot to prove, especially when you're dealing with mature adults. So he realizes that he's hungry. He realizes that he has to be scrappy because he's young in order to be respected in the New York City that he was in. So therefore he's not throwing away his shot. So also want to keep in mind when it comes to the independent colony situation with Britain, there was an ally there. We want to make sure we recognize it was France. France was heavily involved as an ally, and that lets you know that sometimes situations that you see may not be just with one individual, with one brand. You could be dealing with another brand or individual on the scenes that you see, or even behind the scenes. So you have to be wise in what you're saying and doing at all times, because there's a lot of moving factions that go on in life. Another thing that that was stated, there was a team. And then not only was there France involved as a team, but they actually mentioned in the song some of the individuals that were agreed with Alexander's views. And they mentioned some of the individuals. I'll have you go back into the video to listen to those individuals were. Please leave the comments, the names of the individuals that were also characters in the song, and what their motivations and drives and philosophies were in the comment. But most of them wanted to focus on social advancement. Alexander wanted to focus on social advancement. He knew that he was hungry, he knew that he was scrappy, he knew that he was young, he knew he was an immigrant, he knew that he was an orphan bastard, he knew that he was coming to a new place, and the revolution was a way for him to advance socially. Socially, as social existence is very important for human beings, especially as we are creatures of a community. We don't really do too well individually. And we thrive more in a group, and when you're in a group, indirectly, you want to either be in the middle, or obviously you want to be at the top of the group leading. Sometimes it's good to be in the middle for Aaron Burr's perspective, to not throw away your shot, but we'll get into that in a minute. We also got into the conversation where some of his friends said that there was still bondage going on, and there were people that did not have the same rights. So this individual here that spoke said, hey, there are some other challenges going on within the colonies, and some of those things are people don't have the same rights. So it's safe to say in the song that Alexander was an advocate of possible equal rights for this time for a particular reason. Maybe he needed more bodies to join the soldiery or join the troops. I don't know. But at the end of the day, the message was agreed that there were rights that needed to be included for all people, and there were black battalions on the scene. And I do want to recognize, and I do feel like we need to do more of as a culture to recognize what one would call black relations or black achievements. And there were black battalions that were on the scene. I think I saw one movie at one point, I forgot what it's called, but because there were I don't know if it's true or not, but this is the social idea that's getting out there sometimes, is because they were a black battalion, they were the first ones to go on the front lines. And when you're usually on the front lines, you're usually the first one to die because you're getting the bullets first, but you're pushing the opponents back. So as the people die in the front, they're still going pushing the opponents back, and so the troops are still making an advancement, if that makes sense. And so nobody usually wants to go on the front lines because 99% of the time you're gone. And the black battalions from a couple movies that I saw had no choice, and eventually, or even portrayed those black battalions as being proud to be on the front line. So it goes back to what they were saying, that everybody had the same rights and maybe seeing each other as equals without looking at skin color. I don't know if that's something that we can discuss another time. Aaron Burr was is actually an individual that's going to have challenges with Alexander in the play throughout the whole play. But Aaron Burr said, stay under the radar. Don't. I mean, yes, you want to take your shot, but do it in a way where you don't really attract attention to yourself. Where Alexander, through his youth and scrappiness and hunger, may have been putting extra attention on himself, and we'll find out how that ends up as we go through the other videos, other songs that lead to the end of the play. Excuse me, but it was clear that Alexander did have a team to support him and get him on his way. So another part of the message in the song was to rise up. This was their not throwing away their shot. This was their mentality. Rise up. Don't fall down. Rise up. Get off your knees. It takes work to get off your knees, first of all, and rise up. These colonies rose up. And maybe you rise up because you're hungry. If you're that hungry for something, you're going to rise. No way around it. Or you fall. Rise up. Alexander imagined death. And that meant that this man accepted the fact that what he was doing may end up being his demise, if you will. And where he comes from, was a rough life, and most people did not make it past 10 years old, let alone 20, which is what the age he was at the time. But he was still willing to, go through all those challenges, and that really helped his social status. Keep in mind, he came as a new American immigrant, if you will, to a whole new country, and he works his way to becoming the executive assistant to George Washington during the Revolution while he was the general, and then he becomes the Secretary of Treasury for the United States under the first administration. That does a lot in regards to social status and not throwing away a shot. And his focus was, are we nations of states? What is the state of our nation? Which meant that he was very open and into, or at least aware of, politics and civic engagement. And so I would challenge everyone to become more involved in your civic engagement, your civic duties, your education in that regard, whatever country you're in, because there are rules that are set in place, and there's opportunities to change rules. And we pray that all things work integrally for those rules to change if need be. And speaking of civic engagement and politics, I'm going to shout out Clubs United for Progressive Strategy, also known as CUPS, based in Nashville, Tennessee, United States of America. They are one of, I'm sure, many nonprofits across the world that focus on youth, civic education, and engagement. I'll see if I can leave their Facebook link here, and if you can volunteer or donate some money to this cause, or reach out to them through email to see if they're a good fit to donate money to or volunteer or provide resources. Thank you for doing that. And that concludes our first video, or our video for My Shot. We'll go on to the next song shortly, but in the meantime, leave comments, thoughts, what you thought, or what you learned, or what you felt this message was worth to you in the comments. And of course, you want to make sure, if you can, I thank you in advance for clicking the link so that you can donate whatever you felt this message was worth to you. As I'm self-employed, not throwing away my shot, I'm going to be bold, obviously, to thank you in advance for your donations by clicking the link, sending the money there. And this video was, of course, powered by Hylton Elite Marketing Agency and sponsored by Express Employment Professionals, Nashville North and Downtown Office in Nashville, Tennessee, United States of America. They are a staffing company that provides local employment for local residents in North Davidson County, Tennessee, predominantly in industrial and administrative positions, for long-term sustainable employment. So I'll leave the link there. There's express offices all over the country, so click the link as well that says expresspros.com to find the closest office near you. Express Employment Professionals, putting people to work is what they do. Thank you again for checking out the video. See you at the next one. Or see you on the next one. See you at the next one.